Professor Baidyanath Lab, Professor Gauri Dutt Sharma, Professor A.K. Bachchan, Dr. Meeta, Professor Permanent Jha, Dr. Shiv Kumar Yadav, distinguished teachers, students, and scholars of English, ladies and gentlemen. I deem it a privilege and pleasure to bring to this august gathering warmest good wishes from the city of the Taj and Solakul. In the context of the theme of the conference, our close proximity to the ancient Nalanda University assumes special significance. The ruins of Nalanda that today lie in splendor, in spite of the passage of centuries, remind us of the glorious seat of learning that had lured countless lovers of peace and harmony from various parts of the globe till the fanatic invader Bakhtiyar Khilji desecrated and vandalized in 1193 what had been a flourishing center of Buddhist education for nearly 7 centuries. For the students of English literature, such barbarous and uncivilized acts are not without parallel. On May 29, 1453, the fall of Constantinople brought to the fore similar scenes of desecration of innumerable libraries containing invaluable books and manuscripts belonging to the classical age. However, it is no less significant that this event marked a turning point in the history of civilization. During the said exodus, the survivors who succeeded in escaping the brutality of the Turkish invasion carried with them whatever they could salvage from the libraries to keep alive the tradition of ancient learning. Such individual as well as collective acts of valor culminated in the end of the Middle Ages and the beginning of the Renaissance. The revival of classical learning brought to the fore the treasures of Greek and Roman literature. The plays, tragic and comic, emphasized the high moral order of the Athenian society. Respect for ethics and morality governed the unrestricted spirit of Athenian democracy. Renaissance humanism emphasizes the dignity of man and his perfectibility. The spirit of human ingenuity is lucidly captured by Shakespeare in his words from the play Hamlet. What a piece of work is man! How noble in reason, how infinite in faculties, in form and moving, how expressed and admirable in action, how like an angel in apprehension, how like a god, the beauty of the world, the paragon of animals. The spirit of human concern experienced a major paradigm shift with the French Revolution in 1789. Its ideals of liberty, equality, and fraternity hugely impacted the creative process for writers and intellectuals of the time. William Wordsworth effusively declared, "Bliss was it in that dawn to be alive, to be young was very heaven." The magnitude of the change wrought by the French Revolution can be seen from the way it provided the much needed impetus to view humanity. It was largely William Wordsworth who became the harbinger of celebrating the lives of common people. Consequently, the personas in his poetry are ordinary folks like the solitary reaper, leech gatherer, Michael, Matthew, Lucy Gray, beggars, shepherds, dwellers in the valley, and similar others who live a life of elemental simplicity far from the madding urban crowd immersed in mere getting and spending. In the wake of the Industrial Revolution and unprecedented technical advancement, new dimensions were added to the concept of humanism by focusing attention on man in the total, unfathomable inwardness of his being and a new purpose that would give significance to man's life. During the intellectual disorder between the two great wars, extreme disillusionment prevailed as to the political and social systems upon which men had previously relied, and their discredit extended to all the cults and systems of objective thinking that had been associated with them. Cataclysmic changes in thought, ideas, and actions led to a pervasive sense of gloom that became the dominant mood in the realm of literature. However, W. H. Auden's exhortation to writers, poets, and intellectuals in the poem "In Memory of W. B. Yeats" signified the light of hope when he said, "In the deserts of the heart, let the healing fountains start." Strange as it may seem, the dominant note in the Indian subcontinent was of coming to terms with the reality of a nation waking up from its centuries of slumber under one alien rule or the other. The writer saw the opportunity for self discovery, the strength of his own roots, his history and destiny, and for turning the English language into an anti language experience to fight against the cultural imperialism of the British. Ruskin Bond's statement in this context is significant. He says, "It was thought that with the departure of the British, the English language was finished in India. In fact, just the opposite has happened. English has flowered in India to an extent it had never done in British time." We are all aware how Salman Rushdie's Midnight Children was a seminal influence in triggering off the boom in Indian writing in English. Not only did Rushdie's masterpiece overwhelm literary circles in the West and win the Booker Prize, its impact on Indian literature in English was also decisive. Blessed by media hype and critical acclaim in the West, and patronized by readers in their own country, they have earned for Indian English fiction an enviable distinction in terms of variety, value, interest, and importance. Thanks to the opening up of branches by upmarket foreign publishers like Penguin, Picador, HarperCollins, and others, Indian writing in English today is hot property. Especially fiction is now seen as the goose that lays golden eggs. What a leap it has been for Indian writing in English, from R.K. Narayan wishing to throw the manuscript of Swami and Friends into the Thames as he couldn't find any publisher abroad, to the writers who have bagged the Booker, the Pulitzer, and other such fancy awards. In locating humanistic trends in English fiction in English, the contribution of women writers must come up for serious consideration. After Kamla Markandeya, Anita Desai, Shashi Deshpande, and others set the scene for understanding the human world in its various manifestations, the decade of the 1990s and after saw a virtual boom in women's fiction. Awards and accolades, starting with the Booker to Arundhati Roy for God of Small Things and the Pulitzer for Jhumpa Lahiri's Interpreter of Maladies, have compelled one to believe that women writers need no more mourn the absence of a room of one's own in the sphere of Indian fiction in English. Among the challenges I find for the creative writer is the need to use English language with the same felicity and authenticity with which the Bhasha writers use their vernaculars. No amount of humanistic concern can evolve without the use of a language that makes genuine human speech resonate with the truly human thought. In this era of globalization, it is perhaps a unique phenomenon to see the underlying unity running through the literary productions of diverse nations and cultures. From the above discussion about the impact of literature in shaping sensibilities and approaches to life in different times, climes, and spaces, I find it pertinent to share with my young friends here my unforgettable meeting and conversation with the two-time Pulitzer Prize winner August Wilson during my Fulbright fellowship year at the University of Washington, Seattle. When I asked Wilson about his dropout experience at Gladstone School that had brought an end to his formal education, he wistfully responded, "Yes, it was at Gladstone High School. I got interested when our history teacher asked us to write a paper on a historical personage. I chose Napoleon because Napoleon had always fascinated me as a self made person. My teacher refused to believe I had written the paper. I showed him the bibliography and the footnotes, but he wasn't convinced. He gave me a failing grade E on the paper. I tore the paper and threw it in the waste basket and walked out of the school. August Wilson admitted that the abrupt end of his formal education would not keep him away from his passion for reading. Inspired by his mother, August learned to read at the age of 4 and had his first library card when only he was 5 years old. His favorite haunt after he dropped out of school was the Carnegie Public Library, where, through avid reading of works by Black authors, he discovered the joy and terror of remaking the world in his own image through the act of writing. He wistfully recalled how his mother had so much wanted him to become a lawyer and added that, had she been alive, she would have been truly proud of her unschooled son being conferred with honorary degrees from numerous US and other international universities, including Harvard. The story of Nani Palkiwala, who was designated as God's gift to India by C. Rajagopalachari, is no less inspirational. Before becoming one of the most eminent jurists of international fame, Palkiwala was a student of English literature, aspiring to be an English teacher. As a student, his inherent love for literature is evident from his daily long visits to the popular book depot Lamington Road, Bombay, owned by one Ganesh Ramarao Bhatkal, who would encourage Palkiwala to read books for free for as long as he wished to be there. In one of his statements, Palkiwala records, "It was in those years that I read the lines of Wordsworth, especially his stint in Abbey, which has always remained etched in my memory, and the lines he quotes, that best portion of a good man's life, his little, nameless, unremembered acts of kindness and of love. If mere 3 lines from a poem can instill in an individual the irresistible urge for kindness and love, the importance of literature need not be overemphasized. It is often the general tendency to hold in low esteem what literature can offer us in terms of career opportunities in comparison to science or medicine. An astronomer once declared in a scientific meeting, to an astronomer, man is nothing more than an insignificant dot in the infinite universe. Einstein, who was present at the meeting, is reported to have observed, "I have often felt, but then I realize that the insignificant dot who is man is also the astronomer." It may be debated whether the study of literature can bring one material affluence, but it cannot be denied that literature can make us better human beings, capable of compassion and understanding towards our less fortunate brethren. In the zoo at Lusaka, Zambia, there is a cage where the notice reads, "The world's most dangerous animal." Inside the cage, there is no animal, but a mirror where you see yourself. It is rightly believed that animals can be trained, but only human beings can be educated. Therefore, we must cultivate a lifelong intellectual curiosity and make books and wisdom of the ages our lifetime companions. Literature can shed enormous light of awakening on our mind and heart, provided we allow the windows of our mind to remain open rather than leaving them at the mercy of what has now become a popular term called herd immunity. More importantly, literature can contribute immensely in developing the skill of eloquence that can move individuals and crowds. In contemporary parlance, while the whole world was battling to contain the onslaught of COVID 19, the sales of Albert Camus' The Plague rocketed unprecedentedly. It was reported that in France, particularly, there were more queues of people outside bookshops for a copy of the book than that of COVID infected patients outside hospitals. Camus points out in the novel, each of us has the plague within him. No one on earth is free from it. We can see in the statement a universal link that connects us to the plague and the chaos it created in ancient Thebes of Sophocles' Oedipus Rex. Alice Kaplan's observation that you need to read the plague almost as though this novel were a vaccine. Not just a novel that can help us think about what we are experiencing, but something that can help heal us, further advances the argument in favor of the value of literature. Here I am reminded about a song, Blowing in the Wind, by Bob Dylan, the literature Nobel laureate that became exceedingly popular during the civil rights movement in the US in 1960s and remains so even today. How many roads must a man walk down before you call him a man? Yes, and how many seas must a white dove sail before she sleeps in the sand? Yes, and how many times must the cannonballs fly before they are forever banned? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. How many times must a man look up before he can see the sky? Yes, and how many ears must one man have before he can hear people cry? Yes, and how many deaths will it take till he knows that too many people have died? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. The song, besides other things, sensitizes us about matters we see and tend to ignore and urges us to look within ourselves to understand with compassion and concern our responsibilities towards humanity at large. In a world caught up in the throes of crisis, generated by oppression, discrimination, fundamentalism, and clash of civilization, even a little poem can help us connect to people and events that we had hitherto pretended not to be aware of. In an age where cyberspace has literally shrunk the world in terms of both space and time, it is imperative for the writer as well as the reader to understand that no policy of isolation is possible. In a global setting where we are subjected to the tsunami of 24 into 7 information, it is difficult for a sensitive person to pretend to remain unaware of the going on in the rest of the world, be it the Russian invasion of Ukraine, The attack on the US Capitol, Black Lives Matter movement, the death of Mahsa Amini in Iranian police custody, or the brutal murder of Ankita Bhandari in Uttarakhand. I therefore look forward to with optimism that the deliberations in this conference on numerous dimensions of emergence, essence, and presence of literature will provide a roadmap for the glorious future of English teaching and learning in India and elsewhere. This keynote talk will remain incomplete if I do not put on record my grateful thanks to the office bearers of the Association for English Studies of India for giving me the opportunity to address you all as president of this conference. My thanks are also due to Nalanda Mahavihara for organizing this historic conference with success. A big thank you to one and all. Thank you.